Hello, you are viewing a lesson about the nouns vocabulary list for this week. We have 10 nouns. A noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. Our first noun is raconteur. A raconteur is a person who is a gifted talker or storyteller. Here's my sample sentence. The raconteur had us glued to our seats. We couldn't wait to hear the end of the story. The raconteur is the speaker, and we know that he's a gifted storyteller in this sentence with the context clues. We couldn't wait to hear the end of the story. The next word is euphemism. A euphemism is the use of a nice word or phrase instead of an offensive or a terrible one. So here's my sample sentence. When I'm talking to my grandma about troubling times, I will use a euphemism instead of offending her. For example, it was a tough day instead of my day sucked. The context clues I've provided here are the example of a euphemism and the phrase that it replaces, which might seem offensive to some. The next word is hyperbole. A hyperbole is a wild exaggeration, often on purpose for effect. Here's my sample sentence. It's hard to believe anything he says because his story was so full of hyperbole. How am I supposed to believe the fish was really that big? Another example of hyperbole would be something like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die if I don't get that A on this paper. Or if you're talking about something being the worst day ever. That's hyperbole. That's wild exaggeration. The next word is bombast. This is a tough one. I've seen this word used as an adjective before, bombastic, for example, but as bombast, it's a noun. So it is the language that is high-flown or pompous, makes the speaker sound like he's arrogant. Here's the sentence. My teacher's speech is so full of bombast that I don't think he can relate to me. He should try using more student-friendly language so he doesn't sound so arrogant and out of touch. The bombast is the speech. It is the language that makes him sound pompous. The next word is lampoon. I've also seen this word used as a verb, but as a noun, it is the ridicule of a person, or it is the satire. So it's verbal ridicule of a person, or it's personal satire. In my example here, the lampoon against the presidential candidate on Saturday Night Live last night was so hilarious that it probably brought him more recognition than he would have had without the criticism. The lampoon is the ridicule, or it is the satire. I have seen it used as a verb, but for the purposes of this assignment, we'll use it as the subject, the thing. The next word is platitude. A platitude is a tired, trite, old saying, a banality. In my sample sentence, the beauty queen candidate responded with a platitude about world peace. Couldn't she think of something more original? The platitude is the speech. It is the phrase or whatever that's being said that is played out. It's trite. The next word is despot. This is probably a familiar one. A despot is a ruler with total control, a tyrant or an autocrat. In my sample sentence, the despot ruled with an iron fist and refused to consider anyone else's perspective. So we can see the context clues, ruled with an iron fist and refused to consider anybody else. That makes him a despot. Someone in charge is not necessarily a despot. You need to be in charge tyrannically, like just without considering anybody else, almost violently. A despot is someone with total control. The next word is sycophant. A sycophant is a brown-noser, or someone who flatters others, someone who sucks up, okay, like a student who just compliments a teacher in hopes of getting an A, just to suck up. That's a sycophant. Here's an example sentence. It's easy to tell who the sycophant is on the first day of school by observing who brings the teacher an apple and compliments her shoes. Really, anyone who's sucking up, trying to get into favor, that would be called a sycophant. The next word is glutton. A glutton is one who is overly, almost sinfully hungry for something, usually food, but not exclusively. This word does not refer to a person who is starving or malnourished. That person is not a glutton because they're not sinfully hungry. They are really just plain physically hungry. A glutton is someone who doesn't need it, someone who might be obese yet eats plates full of food, or someone who might be super duper rich yet wants to get more money. Okay? A glutton is not necessarily someone who's hungry for food. So like I suggested, you could be a glutton for money, you could be a glutton for punishment, you could be a glutton for fun. That'd be a hedonist. We'll see that word coming up. But someone who's sinfully hungry or desireful for something, doesn't need it but wants it. So in my sample sentence, I don't like eating at buffets because there always seems to be at least one obese glutton who fills his plate with all the crab legs and doesn't leave any for anyone else. The next word is hedonist. A hedonist is someone who lives for pleasure or happiness, basically makes that their priority, and sometimes to the detriment of other things, like in my sample sentence. I could tell she was a hedonist when she started skipping school all the time to go skydiving just for the thrill and the excitement. She had a tattoo that read YOLO. So a hedonist is someone who puts pleasure and happiness above all other priorities. That's the 10 words for our nouns list. Please, after viewing this video, contribute a sentence of your own to the discussion board here in our course topics and units page. We'll be reading this throughout the week. I'd like to see sentences by Wednesday so that I can give you feedback and you'll be prepared for the quiz. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.